are recording, so I will turn it over to Chair Howard.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I am Gwen Howard, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. Today, the board will be undertaking a virtual board meeting due to the health and safety threats and challenges presented by the COVID-19 virus. Our federal, state, and local officials have advised that we are not to congregate in groups greater than 10 members and that we maintain social distancing, and therefore we are abiding by these recommendations today while also continuing to carry out the duties and responsibilities that have been delegated to us by statute. There will be other modifications to our normal board meeting routine today. One, after comments by the district's general counsel, Vice President of Safety and Security, Shane Hunter, will present a modified safety briefing to the board. Two, all board directors are appearing remotely, and access to both the public and the media is afforded via a telephone connection to this conference. The telephone is located in the lobby of the district's former headquarters at 1723 Harney Street. Three, Director Begley is appearing remotely from the former boardroom at 1723 Harney Street to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Four, all presenters are appearing remotely. I will ask each presenter to mute their microphones and disable their cameras until they are presenting. I will also ask my colleagues on the board not to talk over each other, as that may result in poor audio. And five, finally, I will note that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will capture audio and video from all participants. The recording will then be uploaded to the district's website after the meeting. I would like to introduce the district's General Counsel, Mark Mendenhall, and he will address some of the other aspects of today's meeting regarding public access and input.
Thank you, Chair Howard. My name is Mark Mendenhall. I am the General Counsel for the district. And thank you and welcome to the first MUD board meeting to be held virtually. We are utilizing a tool called Cisco WebEx, which allows directors, presenters, the public, and the media to access this meeting virtually via a computer or telephonically via a phone. This tool is used in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and is permitted via Governor's Executive Order 20-03, which expanded restrictions in the Open Meetings Act. As Chair Howard has noted, we are in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, and for the record, Director Begley has been kind enough to access this meeting via a phone at the district's former headquarters at 1723 Harney. This is also the site that we have arranged for both public and media to access this meeting. The lobby of 1723 Harney is currently open, and a phone is connected for those who may wish to address the board. The use of our former building was made possible via an extension of our lease with the Douglas County Building Commission, and our thanks to them for their assistance. As also Chair Howard has noted, this meeting is being recorded. It is not being live streamed. We will work to post the recording to the district's website as soon as possible. I will remind presenters, as Chair Howard just did, to mute their microphones, disable their cameras unless they are presenting. This is an attempt to ensure strong connectivity and clarity for the directors. And finally, thank you to the directors for your patience and staff for their efforts to ensure that the meeting is being held. That's all I had, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. I will now introduce Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security, to present a modified safety briefing to the board. Mr. Hunter.
Good morning. Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. The traditional safety briefing has been changed to match the contemporary crisis our nation is experiencing. The most important safety measure that we can all take in an effort to protect our coworkers, our friends, and our families is to continue to aggressively practice the big three. Wash your hands often, do not touch your face, and remind others as well. And most of all, maintain social distancing. This concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I would like to note for the record there will be no legislative report provided at today's meeting due to the fact that the legislative session was suspended indefinitely on March 17th until further notice due to COVID-19. That concludes the introduction. Roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Here.
Bagley,
Here.
Cook,
Here.
Friend,
Here.
Frost,
Here.
McGowan, Howard.
Here. Construction and operations. Mr. DeBoer will review the proposed capital expenditures.
Well, good morning and thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dave DeBoer. I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and I'll be overviewing the capital expenditures letter. The first project is under tab 5. It's a ratification. It's system improvement for $845,000 to relocate gas and water mains near 168th and Poppleton. This is a phase 1 effort to support the City of Omaha's widening of 168th Street. This project is not reimbursable as the mains are in the right-of-way. Materials are being procured and construction is scheduled for next month. Phase 2 design includes a road boring and some additional design and construction that will be brought to the board at a later date. Any questions on the capital expenditures letter?
Dave, I have one, Mike McGowan.
Yeah.
This project, is it part of, it's a precursor to the city's project to widen 168th Street from Pacific to Center?
Yep, down through that corridor between Poppleton to West Center Road.
Will the city be doing any work at the same time on the street?
I think the protocol is typically they try to get in and get the mains all relocated and a lot of the utilities out of the way before the city comes in behind.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dave, Tim Kavanaugh here. Have you seen any projects being moved up to take advantage of the lower traffic volume that we're seeing right now? Or is the city moving anything up, or are they pretty much sticking to their long-range plan?
You know, I've not seen any readjustments of projects. I can tell you construction continues pretty quickly, and in some locations we've had problems abandoning mains primarily because of accessing homes or apartments. And so in some situations, they can actually be slowed. But because of the light traffic, you're exactly right. It's an excellent opportunity to be moving forward and to be moving quicker. But I can't tell you, Director Kavanaugh, that things have actually accelerated because of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the capital expenditures letter? All right, then moving into
Mr. DeBoer, please review the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates letter.
Thank you again. This is a ratification. Due to the delayed board meeting, we wanted to go ahead and get payment out to those contractors on their final contracts. So this month we had 4 projects being finalized, 1 for TAP construction, 2 for Kirsten construction, and 1 for Cedar. I would like to highlight 2 of them. The first one is item B for Kirsten's construction. This had a change order of $91,570, primarily for extra work due to rubble and debris that was encountered while installing the main in Maple Street. The rubble that we ran into appeared to be carryover from a much earlier resurfacing project. And so through unit costs, we were able to identify that, but it's a large change order associated with that project. The second item I'd like to highlight is item D. This project's being finalized for $178,403 for Cedar construction. This project had about a $5,500 change order, primarily associated with replacement of a storm sewer and installation of riprap along that corridor. And riprap is typically just larger sized rocks that we use for armoring shorelines and waterways. Any questions on the acceptance of contracts and final payment of estimates?
All right, Mr. Zellers will review the bids on contracts and materials.
Good morning. John Zellers, Director of Purchasing. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7. There are a few items I'd like to discuss this morning. We accepted bids on 4 water main projects in which the bids for all 4 came in over the engineering estimate. There are several factors that may have contributed to this. Recently, engineering made changes to the trench shoring standards that must be met by water main contractors. This will require more installation of shoring materials and additional time for benching or sloping of trench walls. Specifications have been revised, increasing expectations and standards around the installation of polyethylene encasement for corrosion protection of ductile iron pipe. There continues to be an abundance of work in Omaha area, and contractors continue to be challenged with the lack of workers. Lastly, contractors have indicated increases in material prices. Developers for each of the projects have been made aware of the bids and have asked us to move forward with awarding the contracts. The low bid for each project is recommended for approval. The next few items I'd like to highlight are around the renovation of the new headquarters, which can be found on page 2 and 3. We entered into contract with MCL for the renovation work and are asking for ratification. In addition, we are asking for approval for the purchase of network equipment required for the new headquarters. The purchase of the equipment will be made under our 3-year contract with Sirius that was approved by the board on January 3rd, 2018 as our Cisco preferred provider. The best pricing available to us for Cisco network equipment is through Sirius. We also accepted bids for the furniture for the new headquarters, in which 5 bids were received. We are recommending the low bid from all makes. That's all I have for you this morning, and would be happy to answer any questions.
John, the last sentence on the last item, it says we approved that CNA on February 6th for $3 million and then February 6th for $8 million. What for a total of $11 million? Is this the total amount the board has approved, the $11.9 million for all the renovation and headquarters work?
That is correct.
And so we've approved that, and what this is saying that we're still going to come in under that.
What this is saying, no, up to this point, we have allocated, right now of that 11.9 million, there's about 480,000 that has not been allocated to some portion of the project, whether it's the actual renovation work, the IT equipment. You may recall last month we brought the security equipment to you, but there's still other components that have not been brought to the board. For example, audiovisual is one of them, and then we continue working on that.
So we have $480,000 left of the approved amount for future work that you'll bring to us at some time.
Correct. But then also, if you recall, with Mr. Osdemore's discussion with the board, we do fully expect to bring another CNA to the board at a future date to cover additional expenses.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
All right. Services and extensions. Mr. O'Brien will review the proposed main extensions.
Good morning. Corey O'Brien, the Vice President of Engineering and Construction. Behind tab 9, you'll find our main extension letter this month. And we have 3 water projects on our letter this month, and the combined impact of those 3 projects is 8 commercial lots and 136 single residence lots. If you'll turn to page 2 of the letter, I'd like to speak about item number 1 just briefly. This is a main extension project to install domestic water service and fire protection to the UNO baseball field at 67th and Center. The developer is installing approximately 2,300 feet of 8-inch ductile iron main at an estimated cost of $342,000. Installation of this main alone will create a significantly long dead end in our system, so management is recommending the installation of an additional 700 feet of 8-inch ductile iron pipe to connect the main fronting the development to an existing main in our system. This will provide better reliability and increase fire flows to the area. And the estimated cost to the district for this 700 feet is $174,000. I would note, though, that the property adjacent to the 700-foot piece of main is currently undeveloped, and when it does develop, that the district will be reimbursed for the cost of the main. That's all I have to speak about. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have one on the baseball field there, that project, baseball field. Is that anywhere near the current city project that we're watching for construction center impact or anything in that area? Does that impact
No,
at all?
it's more up by Mercy Road, 67 and Mercy. So it's some distance away from the basin project right outside our gate, Mr. McGowan.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? Thank you.
Personnel. Ms. Savine will review employee wage and salary increases and ratifications.
Good morning, Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. A brief recap of employee counts for the end of March 2019 and 2020. There were 804 regular full-time employees along with 7 regular part-time employees on March 31st of 2019. That's a total of 811 regular employees. In 2020, there were 823 regular full-time with 4 regular part-time. So that gives us a total of 827 regular employees at the end of March of this year. We did have 3 temporary employees at the time as well. Behind tab 10, you'll find the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 5 employees for that month, this month. 3 employees are being promoted into OAC jobs through the posting process. And additionally, we have 2 SPA employees also being promoted through job postings. There are no new hire ratifications for the month. Any questions?
How many?
Bonnie, can you?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you. Bonnie, can you give me an update on the student summer employment program and where we're at with that?
Sure. Right now, we have a little over 50, about almost 60 applicants. We have stayed in touch with those applicants, and most recently this week, we have prepared a communication for them to let them know that at this time, we do not have an exact date or even a date whether we will bring on the summer students due to the pandemic situation. We're letting them know that if they are no longer interested in the position, we understand, and we would like them to let us know so we can remove them from consideration, but that if we do set a date where we will begin bringing on summer employees, that we will notify them at a later time.
That sounds really like that sounds sufficient. I appreciate you handling this. I know it's always so many things are up in the air, but it sounds like you've done a really good job with that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Bonnie, this is Tim.
Yes, Tim.
I'm comparing Melissa Polito and William Sargent, and they're getting promoted to the same position, but the pay is quite different. Is that because of the hire date? One of them was 3 years on the job longer, or is it steps, or what's the difference in the pay there?
Yes, that is it. Melissa had been in her position longer and had progressed further through the salary grade.
Okay, and when they get promoted to a new position, they don't start at the same place in the what's the word I'm looking for, in the step? They start at different places?
They do. So the way our promotional policy works is they would receive 5% promotional increase on top of their current salary and or the minimum of the salary grade. So as long as that 5% brings them into the salary grade, that's where their promotional salary will be recommended. And if it does not get them at least to entry, we would recommend at least entry.
Okay, so at some point, will the two salaries come together when they reach the top of their grade?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Bonnie,
You're welcome.
I have one question. How many, you went through the staffing numbers, but how many positions do we have that are authorized?
I will get that number for you, Mike. We have been doing a lot of reviews of which jobs we should open right now. We're trying to understand critical jobs because it's a very difficult time to be conducting interviews and accepting applications externally because those folks are not, necessarily able to participate in interviews. We are trying to use web-based interviews, but the whole process has taken a little bit of a step back so that we can evaluate the jobs that we should really be posting right now. And so I'll get you a number. I will get you
That's fine. I don't need the exact number. Described was what I was really getting to and concerned about. And you did a good job of answering it. And so I'm fine with it. You don't have to do any extra work. You do so much anyhow.
Oh, thanks. But I will say we are continuing to do interviews both internally and externally. And it's been an interesting, as you can tell by this meeting, we are trying to use WebEx meetings for some face-to-face interviews because as we all know, it's not just what somebody puts on paper or how they answer questions, but it is a lot about nonverbals and other, that interaction. So we are getting creative and we are continuing to fill and hire. We've adjusted our onboarding process slightly so that we can still bring employees on who had already committed to a start date with us and gave notice to their employer. We felt that they'd made a commitment to us and we wanted to maintain that commitment with them. So though we might have slowed down a little bit and are taking a little bit more time to be diligent about our recruitment and our hiring, it has not stopped. We are continuing.
Okay. Are you and your staff working from home or the office, or what's the breakdown for your group?
Yeah, thank you. We are all equipped to work from home. However, we have somebody in the office every single day of the week. Right now, Human Resources is in the office 7:30 to 11:30 every day of the week. So one of my staff is here every day, and then I'm here 2 to 3 days a week.
You have them work till 11:30 at night?
It's brutal.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Ms. Savine? All right, we'll move on to insurance and pensions. Mr. Shaffett will review the actuarial valuation report on the retirement plan.
Good morning. My name is Joe Shafford, and I serve as the Chief Financial Officer for the district. Behind tab 11, you will find my transmittal memo as well as 3 pension-related documents. I'm going to point out a few of the highlights from each of the documents. The first document is the actuarial valuation of the retirement plan, and this document is used to determine the annual actuarial determined contribution to the pension plan. As the board is aware, the funding of the plan is comprised of both employer and employee contributions, and the employer contribution is impacted by the fact that the employee contribution rate has been increasing pursuant to the labor agreement that's in place. And just as a point of reference, in 2018, employees contributed 6% of covered payroll. That increased to 7% in 2019, and then it goes up by 0.5% increments from 2020 to 2023, and it reaches 9% in 2023. Just to give you a sense for what those percentages relate to, or equate to, I should say, in contributions from employees, the estimated employee contribution rate is just shy of $5 million for 2020. So the document itself is a lengthy, complex document, 47 pages in length. There's a nice executive summary on pages 1 through 10, but I think there are 2 key statistical takeaways from this document. The first being the funded ratio of the plan, which reached 89.3% as of January 1 of 2020. This increased from 86.5% at a comparable date in 19 or end of 18. of 86.5, like I said. The other key data point in there is the district's actuarial determined required contribution, which is just over 11 million for 2020. It actually came down a little bit from 2019, driven by a couple of things. One is the very strong market performance of the pension plan in 2019, which seems like a distant memory in light of the current turbulent financial markets, but we earned just over 20% in 2019. And I should say, when we did the budget for 2020, we were budgeting an employer contribution of about $13,500,000. Certainly, we were not able to predict the strength of the stock market returns. So with that said, management recommends that the district's 2020 pension contribution remain at the level of 2019, which is $12.3 million. Couple of reasons for that. The first is it will retain some cash versus what we assumed in the budget because of the current uncertainties driven by the pandemic that we're going through currently. But the other thing of note, I think, is even at the 12.3 million contribution level, it's still 1.3 million higher than what the actuary is recommending, which, you know, continues our path towards a higher funding rate. So that will be management's recommendation for the employer contribution. The second document is what's referred to as the GASB 67 and 68 document. This is the accounting guidance provided by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that we have to follow. And it does really, the primary outcome of this, in addition to required disclosures, is it helps us determine what the pension expense is for the year, which was just shy of 12.4 million. It also introduces yet another funding percentage. The funding percentage proposed by the GASB guidance uses market value of assets, whereas the actuarial value uses a smooth number for assets. It takes out some of the volatility. So depending on how the markets perform, that accounting funded percentage can be higher or lower than the actuary. I will say the percentage that's reported to the Retirement Committee in Lincoln is based on the actuarial report. And obviously the cash flow, the contributions are based on actual report. So in my view, that's a slightly more meaningful number for the district. The final document contained in tab 11 is the presentation that Pat Beckham prepares. I think Pat does a wonderful job of distilling very complex information to very understandable terms. It certainly helps this accountant understand the pension much better. There are several interesting statistics contained in that report, one of which is the median return assumption for large public pension plans. It's currently 7.25% and trending downward. As a reminder, ours is at 6.9%. We believe it will be prudent to continue to monitor that and in a systematic manner gradually lower it over time. But that's a decision that we'll need to visit first with the Insurance and Pensions Committee and then ultimately with the full board as we go forward. The final comment I would like to make is a compliment to the board for their support in continuing to fund the pension plan. We have a goal or a value as a company around fiscal responsibility, and one of the tenets in that value is keeping our promises to employees, one of which is funding the pension plan. And I think the board has done a great job of supporting management's recommendation on that front, and I think the depiction of that is the strong funded percentage of our pension plan. Are there any questions on information behind tab 11?
Joe, I'd like to say a couple words from the perspective of the pension committee and everything that we use quite a bit. The actuarial funding, as Joe said, we got to all remember, smooths things out. If you recall, in 2018, we had a down year in the stock market. The results were smoothed out over time into the future. 2019, as Joe said, we have a great year, and they're also smoothed out. Again, so 2018 down year is smoothed out along with 2019 smoothed out. We ended up with 89.3%, which is fantastic. And that's the number that's reported to the state, right, Joe?
Correct.
And that's going to be higher than a lot of entities and everything, and something we should be proud of. And the other thing Joe mentioned is that we reduced our expected return from 7% down to 6.9%. Now, That cost the district, how much money was it, Joe, just doing that?
I believe that was about 600,000 in contribution, and it impacts your funded ratio as well.
It's about 1% of our funded ratio and 600,000 on the ratio or the impact. And that's great. We did that in 2019, knowing that 2019 was going to be a strong year. I agree with Joe. And you all know my position. I want to get that overall return down further, maybe closer to 6.5%, but nothing where I want to rush into it and do it right away. As Joe said, we need to factor in the current situation. And this year with the COVID-19 and everything, we'll have to wait and see in the fall. But, we'll wait for the right time to do that, just like we did in 2019. 6.9 is still good. We have a long-term objective, but we don't, that's not overriding. What's overriding is to bring it down at the right time where it doesn't impact our funding level beyond what we can cover and what the percent is. So I think Joe's right. We'll look at it. The Insurance and Pension Committee will look at it. But, quite frankly, my gut feeling tells me it's unlikely we'll have a reduction recommendation this year, and we'll wait and see next year. That's all.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any further questions on that document?
I'd say I really miss seeing Pat Beckham. I really and truly enjoy seeing her at the board meeting. She makes everything so simple.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to audit. Mr. Schaffert will review the 2019 audit financial statement, please.
Thank you. So behind tab 12, you'll find my transmittal or explanatory memo regarding the 2019 audit. I am pleased to report that the district has received an unmodified or clean audit opinion from RSM, or external auditors. And what that simply means is the district prepared financial statements present fairly the financial position of both the gas and water departments for the period audited, which was 2019. So behind my memo are several documents, the biggest of which is the audited financial statements. It never ceases to amaze me with the required disclosures how this has grown. It's currently 79 pages long and seems like we add 5 to 10 pages every year. So you keep the accountants gainfully employed. In addition to the audited financial statements, there are several memos included within tab 12. The first is a memo from RSM to the board explaining the responsibilities of the auditor and management as it relates to the performance of the audit, as well as significant accounting practices and policies and estimates and what have you. In this letter is a disclosure that I pointed out to the board via email, and it's a disclosure that's titled Uncorrected Misstatement Disclosure. And the gist of this disclosure is the fact that RSM's actuaries and Kavanaugh McDonald, Pat Beckham, they could not reach, they say, professional agreement on the appropriate mortality table to use. The auditors are advocating use of a recently released public sector employee mortality table, whereas Pat Beckham believes that the table she's been using is a better fit. Her primary argument for that is her belief is that the public sector mortality table is more heavily skewed towards clerical type or office type work as opposed to the nature of our workforce. So when we had the audit committee and Kevin Smith presented, that audit committee occurred on March 16th telephonically, Kevin made it very clear that this does not represent an error. Had it been an error, they would have required us to make an adjusting entry, which they did not do, but it's their duty to disclose this difference in professional judgment, as they call it. Now, I have asked the actuaries at the beginning of the 2020 audit cycle to bring this matter to closure. This kind of surfaced late in the process, and it's just when different reviews take place. But what I've requested is that they lock in on key assumptions early on in the process so this doesn't occur like it did for 19. Now, what I do want to tell the board is if it's determined that that public sector table is deemed to be the appropriate table to use, it will result in a higher pension liability because that table predicts a longer lifespan for employees than does the table that Pat uses. So with a higher pension liability comes a higher contribution. But We've certainly not concluded that yet, or I should say the actuaries have not, but we will continue to monitor that as that develops. The other things in there as far as memos, there's a memo on a report on internal control. There's also a management representation letter that Mr. Doyle signs and that I sign, where we acknowledge, among other things, our responsibilities to prepare fair financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Again, I like to remind people, sometimes I think they see an audited report and they feel like the external auditors prepare the financials, and they don't. They're an independent review and attesting to the fair presentation of those financials. That is a district responsibility. So are there any questions related to the audit process?
Joe, the mortality table that the auditors recommend, will other entities like OPTD and other utilities, are they faced with the same type of issue?
I would think it's very similar, Mike, and it seems like in most cases the tables are adjusted somewhat for the experience rate of the employer. And as Pat was making that argument with the auditors, their point was, because of the size of our employee population, they didn't believe the population was big enough for our numbers to be statistically predictable. So that's kind of where they're at. But I think you raised a good point, and perhaps for certain public sector entities, it would be deemed a better fit, but to this point, Pat doesn't believe it is a great fit. So we'll have to see how that conversation continues.
When do you think they'll bring that to a closure, that they come to an agreement or not? I know you've asked them. Did you give them a deadline, like this fall, this summer, whatever?
Well, the reality is when they will approach it again, Mike, when they are doing the 2020 audit. So my suspicion is it will be in the early part of 2021. Now, the good news, Mike, is even if they would decide on a mortality table that results in a longer lifespan, which of course is a positive, we'd like that to be the case, the fact that we're contributing $1.3 million more than the actuary is requiring for 2020 does give us, I'll say, some coverage in that light. But again, I don't expect the conversation to be real active until the audit for 2020 gets in full swing.
Is that something they can resolve pretty quick? Just sit down and arm wrestle one meeting, or is that a lengthy process?
I think they've had several arm wrestling type conversations, so I don't think it's a quick process necessarily. But the good news is I think both parties put out their arguments in these last rounds of conversations. So I expect they'll both be giving the arguments consideration in the off season, so to speak.
Okay. And one last thing, as chairman of the audit committee, I talk to the auditors myself. They call me, I talk to them, and they are extremely appreciative, as well as I and the audit committee are, of the hard work Joe and his whole staff have done to make their audit easy. They have told me consistently that our staff, Joe and his entire staff, do such a good job. It makes their audit a lot easier, and they appreciate all the work and cooperation that you guys give. And I just want to say thank you for a great job.
I appreciate that. My team does a great job of preparing the financials, and it does result in a much more efficient audit, which frankly has yielded results in terms of lessened audit fees. So it's good for both parties. But I appreciate the compliments, Mike. Anything further? Thank you.
Thanks. Do any board members have any further comments?
No.
Is there any member of the public who is participating by phone at the downtown headquarters building who would like to make any comments? And if so, please state your name and address. All right, the committee meetings have now concluded. We will convene in 6 minutes at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we resume.
Thank you. I'd like to now call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mary.
Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard.
Here. Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the lobby of 1723 Harney Access for the public and for the media has been afforded via telephone that is set up in the lobby of 1723 Harney Street, and Director Jim Bagley is participating remotely via the boardroom at 1723 Harney Street. These steps were taken to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act and the Governor's Executive Order number 20-03. I'd like to reiterate that the recording of today's meeting will be available on the MUD website. We will not be reciting the Pledge of Allegiance today due to the fact that each board member is participating remotely. Approval of the minutes for the committee meetings and the regular board meeting from March 5th, 2020. Do we have a motion, Commissioner Cook? Thank you.
I move we approve the minutes for the board meeting dated March 5th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Or discussion, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Capital expenses, Commissioner Friend, could we have a motion, please?
I move we approve the letter discussed in committee from Mr. DeBoer dated April 1st.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates. Again, Commissioner Friend, please.
Also discussed in committee, I move approval as outlined in the letter from Mr. DeBoer to the committee dated March 31.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Bids on contracts and materials. Again, Commissioner Friend, please.
Also, again, discussed in committee, I move approval as outlined in the letter from Mr. Zellers dated April 6th.
Second.
Second.
Is there? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Number 8, notice of purchases between $25,000 and $50,000. Commissioner Friend.
Again, discussed in committee, be placed on file, letter from Mr. Zellers dated April 6th, again, placed on file.
Thank you. Main extensions. Commissioner Friend again.
Move to approve as outlined in the letter from Mr. O'Brien dated March 25.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Wage and or salary increases and ratifications. Commissioner Begley, please.
I move that we approve the letter as outlined from Ms. Savine on April 2nd and discussed in committee.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. Actuarial valuation report on the retirement plan. Commissioner McGowan.
Yes. I move that the actuarial report and the GASB 6768 report, as described fully in the letter from Joe Shafford, April 6th, be placed on file. I also move to approve the contribution to the pension plan at the same amount funded in 2019, consistent with management's recommendation as discussed in committee.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
Now, are we placing on file or are we approving?
Place on file the GASB reports. There are two things there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes. 2019 audit financial statement. Commissioner McGowan.
Yes, I move that the 2019 audited financial statement, as discussed in committee and discussed in a letter from Joe Shafford dated April 6th, be placed on file.
Thank you. Other matters of district business for discussion. This concludes the agenda items for the regular meeting. Do any of the board members have any further comments?
I just want to thank you, Madam Chair and management, for all the work you did to allow us to convene today. Thank you. Job well done. And my fellow directors.
Thank you. This was not easy to put on. I appreciate that. What do we do with our board books in the meantime?
Well, Mary, you were...
I saw Mark Doyle speaking and his line is muted. He can certainly speak, but I believe Mary Mancuso can arrange to pick up the books from you after the meeting.
That
Okay,
sounds
well
good.
said.
Thank you.
And
Are there any other?
I just have a few comments. I want to thank you all and staff for putting this together. We have a bylaw that requires state of the district to be done in the first half of the year. And I would like to tentatively recommend the June board meeting at this time. I think next month is a little soon if we want to present that in person, which I would prefer. I'm open to going either way. I guess I'd ask the board to think about that. If you're okay with it, we'll plan for June. And if we need to move it out for any reason, we could always suspend the bylaws, Mr. Begley, and do that. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't plan for June.
This is Jim. Mark, should we have to suspend the bylaws to push it back, that would certainly be a possibility, and I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, we want to thank all of the employees of the district for rising to the occasion as we've moved into an unprecedented time in terms of our personal lives, but also our professional lives. As you know, we have employees isolated in the 3 water plants, which is certainly a unique position. That's gone very well. Hats off to those employees and to all management for making that livable. And then number 2, we have 80% of our employees reporting from home or working from home, and that's quite a feat. If we tried to do that for some other reason, it would be difficult. So to watch everybody team up and work with purpose and for the cause, our mission, has been a sight to behold. We just hope we can get back to whatever normal looks like in the future, and we're beginning our planning now to work on how we will get back to whatever normal may be. And thanks to the board for your support. We have so much information to share. I never feel like we're sharing enough. So as always, if you have any questions or you want any individual discussions just to see how we're doing, let us know. Otherwise, the daily report to the employees and our report to you
will keep coming as you need. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Mark, one quick question. When you say 80% are working from home, field operations, do they have to, are they taking their trucks home and spending time at home? Or the pickup trucks and vans I can see, but the heavy, they still have to go down to the construction center and get those, right?
Correct. I'll let Dave DeBoer address that. We've got several measures in place. And Dave, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so unlike Water D's particular case, they're able to really dispatch from home and go out into, say, if you're flushing hydrants or working in individual locations. So pretty much one person per vehicle and dispatching from home. On the Gas B side, we're right at about 50% right now, and they're primarily supporting construction. They as well get dispatched to support construction in individual vehicles. In the case of construction, our primary purpose is to come into the construction center to pick up vehicles. But again, the crews are dispatched more appropriately to individual locations in and around the district. So we are really working hard to get one person per vehicle and to try to keep social distancing in play throughout the entire operation side.
And Steve, could you address the rest of field operations, field service, and some of the things that we've done there?
Well, like to play off Dave, we put a lot of energy and emphasis on the water treatment. That was our objectives going into this, and this isn't new, is employee safety and health. Second to the unrestricted delivery of finished water to the entire service area. So we're actually in tour 2 of the sequestered water plants. They'll end Saturday. Tour 3 goes through May 2nd. And there's a tour 4 scheduled if we have to go beyond that. So yeah, as far as routine maintenance or day-to-day issues, we're not doing those. Those functions have been deferred. For emergency response, if we have to gain entry into a home, both the customer and the employee has to feel comfortable. If it's an emergency, we do gain entry, and PPE is provided, and it's under the guidance of a foreman in that regard. And yeah, 84% of the employee population is either starting from home, working from home, or otherwise outside of our facilities. And I'm really proud of everybody's efforts to accomplish that, because things that were only theoretical in the past, such as dispatching from home, managing customer service from home, we pulled off, and it was a collective effort, and it's working well.
Steve, this is Jim K. You're probably on top of this. I'm sure you are on almost all issues. You'll be especially alert to any funding from the federal government we may be able to apply for. There probably is something out there. I don't know where to start, but I'm sure you're probably aware of some sources.
Yeah, when that all starts coming down, the emergency declaration has already occurred. And I think the bigger issue that we're going to have to manage now is how do we return to normal? Because I think everyone has accepted that the new normal isn't going to look anything like it was prior to this pandemic incident. And this is unlike anyone's ever managed before. And uniquely, everyone had the same questions because no one had the answers. And we all found ourselves in the same position. And we relied on each other. So I think that with renewed confidence in the use of PPE, I think the new normal, we're going to segue into this because we got to get the train back on the tracks at some point, collectively, the entire economy, us included, even though, we're critical infrastructure and we have not fell short of the mission. But this is coming at an expense. And yeah, we will, as we have in all previous disasters to this point, we will be seeking funding from the federal government, any other sources that are available.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark and Mark. Do any of the board members have any further comments?
None from here.
I just wanted to, can you hear me? don't want to
Yes.
drag this out, but I was on a call earlier this week with advocates trying to plan for the inevitability of people not being able to pay or slow pay. So my intention is to connect with the team and probably you, Mark M, about a consistent message for people who maybe have never had to ask, so they're are not accustomed to navigating whether it's the internet or our customer service for payment or navigating that. So I'll be working on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any members of the public who are participating by conference phone at the downtown headquarters who would like to make any comments? And I understand we don't have anyone down there.
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Kubat
Does
has
anyone?
informed as Mr. Shell, so.
All right. Any other comments? And if not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes, and thank you. Good job, everyone. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.